It's been some months now since Indian commercial vehicle manufacturer Ashok Leyland notched up 75 years of being around. Only earlier this year, the company occupied the #2 position in the Indian pickup truck segment, even as it bucked the trend to notch up sale after sale in the overall small commercial vehicle segment. However, far away from the forgings of its factories in places like Ennore, Hosur and beyond, there's been one man steering the company through the many ups and downs that the Indian automobile sector has by now become quite accustomed to, including a high-profile energy transition movement. He's sitting down with us today for an ever-so-rare opportunity to speak to him on camera. Dheeraj Hinduja, great meeting you here on CNBC-TV18.
Same here.
As always. We last spoke 5 years ago.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, this interview we're doing at a very interesting time, simply because India is in the midst of one of the world's largest electoral democratic processes, and there's been so much talk about just what kind of an impact the elections will have on the markets, economy and business in general. What's your take? Will there be any impact at all, and what kind of an impact will that be?
I mean, India is always admired for its democracy, and the election results will be out in another 2 weeks. And as businesses, we will adjust to whatever the outcomes are. So I would not like to take a guess on this, but let's wait for the next 2 weeks and see how it goes.
All right. You know, recent data has suggested that even amid, a bit of a resurgence for you and your company, especially in certain segments, the fact is that Indian factory output, industrial growth has slowed. Mining has hit a bit of a 19-month low, and at least that's what data says. The question really is this a cause of concern for CV sales, and how much will it impact Ashok Leyland's performance?
In fact, the last quarter, January to March, was a very good quarter for us. And even the month of April has seen a 10% growth over last year, April. So although there might be segments of the market that might slow down, but in general, what we're seeing is the buoyancy continues. There might be fluctuations in segments, there might be fluctuations month on month, but the general growth that's happening with infrastructure and the all-round buoyancy, I believe this market has a long way to go.
All right. The good news, however, is despite the uncertainty in the market, especially when it comes to industrial output and mining, like we were just discussing, the fact is, in January, you displaced Tata Motors to become the #2 player in pickup trucks. You have been bucking the trend in SEVs, outperforming the rest of the market. So I wonder, is this a segment that you're particularly going to be focused on? We are doing, of course, the interview even as the Bada Dost is in our background. Do you see the company focusing on this segment in particular? And what is the product pipeline like?
Well, we're a fairly late entrant to the LCV segment. We only started in 2008 as a joint venture with Nissan, and our first product came out in 2011.
Right.
Since then, the Dost has had great traction. The performance of the vehicle has been very good. And this gave us confidence to invest more. And in 2020, amidst COVID, we introduced the Barados as a product as well. Now, both these products, along with the partner, has given us good market share. And as you said, we've now crossed 20% within this segment. Naturally, if you look at the whole segment in commercial vehicles, there's still a lot of room to grow. We are only covering 50% of the market. And during the course of this year, 6 new models will be introduced.
All right.
And we're definitely investing a lot more for the future.
All right.
The SCV has tremendous market potential for our international operations as well.
So you're doubling down on the fact that you are a very strong player in the segment, 6 models to go. But speaking of investment, most recently you did announce a 1,200 crore rupee investment in Tamil Nadu, which many say is, of course, your home state. You began manufacturing operations here, so to speak. Could you give us details on where these funds will be deployed? Are you looking at expanding existing capacity? Are you looking at establishing new plants? What's the plan really for that investment?
Well, we have a lot of growth opportunities and investment plans. As you said, Tamil Nadu has been home to Ashok Leyland, so it's only natural that we would look for further expansion over here. Immediately with this 1,200 crores, what we're looking at are some of the newer investments within alternate fuels, investments, some testing facilities. But we will first optimize the capacities that we have,
All right.
but we do see growth opportunities as we're going forward.
So there is headroom, of course, to optimize further capacity at existing plants in Tamil Nadu.
That's right.
All right, okay. But even as talk of this optimization is underway, you're also all set to open a plant in UP. There is a proposal for that, at least as far as the investor summit held in the state earlier this year is concerned. What's the timeline like for that launch, and what kind of a scale are you looking at in terms of production from there?
Well, UP is going to be focused on buses and predominantly on electric vehicles, electric buses. And we're actually quite aggressive we're looking at a time frame of 12 months, 12 to 13 months to have the plant up and running. So it's a tight timeline, but the UP market itself is very big. The government is very keen to expand its electric vehicle buses within the state. And we feel quite confident that being there, we'll be able to service them much better.
All right. So fair to say more electric than ICE would be the order of the day?
That's right.
And would that be a first of sorts for an Ashok Leyland plant?
Yes, I think keeping it more from an electric perspective, it is a first. But at the same time, we want to make this as one of the best plants in the world. So our teams have in fact gone around, they've seen the other bus facilities, they've seen what better we can do from our existing facilities as well. And we're quite confident that when this opens, it would definitely be something different for everyone to see.
And have you earmarked or outlined plans in terms of what kind of capacity you want at that plant?
We're going to start with just a smaller facility with 2,500 buses, which can be ramped up to 5,000.
Okay.
But depending on the market requirements, I'm sure capacity wouldn't pose a problem.
It's interesting that you're speaking about a plant more or less exclusively for electric vehicles, because there's been so much talk about the kind of work you've been doing in EVs as well. But the question really, Dheeraj, is what kind of demand are you seeing at this time and place insofar as the EV business is concerned? What is the demand offtake like?
Well, you know, we started producing electric vehicles quite a few years ago in the UK through our facilities in Optare, which is now also renamed as Switch. And so we've had good experience over there. In India, I would credit the government because they've been able to push the agenda of electric vehicles much faster than many other countries. And the incentives they've provided under the FAME policies, that has helped a lot. Currently, I would say that literally every state has a very strong portfolio of vehicles that they're looking to buy, 12-meter, 9-meter, even 7-meter buses. So as long as the government keeps some form of incentive program going, I think the requirements will continue.
All right, okay. But the fact is that there have also been reports that Ashok Leyland is looking to raise external funding to go about, you know, keeping fires burning in terms of continuing production at Switch Mobility. So if you could just give us a bit of an insight in terms of how do you plan to keep funding the EV business?
Well, you know, Ashok Leyland is in a very strong position from a balance sheet perspective. We literally have no debt at the moment, so I don't think it's a problem in terms of funding Switch. I've been asked this question many times. We were looking at external funding. If you go back to the summer of 2020 and 2021, EVs were a big hype.
Right.
All over the world, even and especially in America, people were doing SPACs. We were also offered a very substantial amount of money to SPAC with Switch, but we did not see the right opportunity in the sense that although the company was getting valuations of billions of dollars, we did not think that valuation was justified.
Insofar as Switch is concerned, I think there have been 2 tranches of investments that Ashok Leyland has made to the company, including a mammoth 1,200 crore rupee investment. What is the investment pipeline looking like right now insofar as Switch Mobility is concerned?
Well, you know, with Switch, what we've tried to do is, again, optimize the facilities that they have with Ashok Leyland, but the money has really gone into development of new products. So we had the 12-meter bus. Very recently, last month, we launched the electric LCV vehicles, which we see a very good market for. We will very soon be launching the low-floor 12-meter bus, and we've got the 9-meter bus in production. What I'm most excited about is our first European bus that we've developed, which is termed the E1. and we're looking at the first sales to go into the Spanish market this summer.
Okay.
So as far as it goes, Switch will continue to invest in new products, and we are seeing demand not only in the Indian market, but many global and international markets as well.
Absolutely, especially Spain. Now that you bring it up, there's been so much talk about a market there and about possibly even setting up a plant over there. So these are interesting things that have been going on for Switch, no doubt. But speaking of plants itself, Dheeraj, have plans been finalized with regard to opening a dedicated Switch mobility plant? Because the company right now manufactures at one of Leyland's plants in Chennai.
That's right.
Is there a plan to have one separately for Switch? If yes, what kind of a timeline are we looking at?
I think, fortunately, being a subsidiary of Ashok Leyland, rather than jumping into creation of plants which are also very capital intensive, we are trying to see how we can minimize those investments, but as and when the volumes really ramp up and it justifies to create a new facility, we will be doing it.
Okay.
But at this, in the, let's say, next 1 year, 1.5 years, I think through Ashok Leyland's own facility, we'll be able to meet the requirements.
All right. With that, we'll slip into a really short break, but on the other side, we'll quiz Dheeraj Hinduja a lot more on what Ashok Leyland has on the EV front. Keep watching CNBC-TV18. Welcome back. You're watching CNBC-TV18 and we're in conversation with Ashok Leyland Chairman Dheeraj Hinduja. And we've been talking EVs, plant expansion and a lot more that's on offer from the Ashok Leyland stables. Dheeraj, we've been talking EVs to a very great extent, including all the plans that you have for Switch Mobility. But a question that's on several people's minds, including investors and several consumers of mobility in India, is will at any point in time, will Ashok Leyland ever come around to considering a demerger of the EV business? Is that something that's on the cards?
Not really. And when you look at the change that's happening into alternate fuels, what was expected, everyone felt that this transition will happen much faster. But what we're seeing that the pace is a little slower. So from that perspective, I think it makes sense for us to keep the company together and look at the opportunities wherever they can, whether they're joint sourcing opportunities. And that also you can also consider that we're also looking at electric trucks.
Yes.
So in that sense, to look at certain developments, battery strategies, etc., it's better to keep both the companies together.
All right. With that strategy clear, the question then will arise, are you looking at any acquisitions in this space? After Switch Mobility, the kind of impact that you can create in this space has been so pronounced that one wonders, will there be any more acquisitions that you are looking at? And if yes, what kind of acquisitions will they be and how will they help grow your footprint?
Well, I would say that, look, I'd never say never to any of these opportunities, and if a good acquisition opportunity comes around, why not? It could be outside of India as well. But irrespective of that, as I was saying, what's important for us is to keep building our product pipeline. And so whether it's for the Indian market, Middle East market, or the European market, we're making sure that on buses and on light vehicles, we want to continue growing the portfolio.
Right. But are you in talks with any players on the acquisition front?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. You're seeing a whole lot of, talk from the government side as well in terms of more electric buses, more electric trucks. So the question is, what kind of policy and fiscal support do you expect from the next government? And I say next government because we will, of course, have another government, over hopefully a 5-year-long period starting June. What kind of fiscal support do you expect from the new establishment?
Well, the FAME policies have been very encouraging because it's giving money to the customer for purchasing these vehicles. And I would say that whilst this has been provided for all other types of products, they've not done it for trucks so far. So if the government is looking at extension of a FAME 3, as has been mentioned, I would suggest that if they can include the trucks as well, then that will accelerate this process. And if you take the experience of China, they have been ahead in the electric game, more ahead of any other country. But when the government slowed down the incentives that were being offered, they suddenly saw a steep fall on the sales of electric vehicles. So from that perspective, the government needs to continue incentivizing not only the manufacturers but also the customers to buy these electric vehicles.
Absolutely, there's a whole lot to learn there. But are you satisfied with the pace of innovation really when it comes to, let's say, a segment like the eMHCV? You're seeing names like the Tube Investments of India, Kalyani Powertrain wanting to get into this segment. There's been reports that they just well might in the ongoing fiscal itself. Are you happy with the pace of innovation here? Do you feel there's a whole lot more to be done?
Look, I think it's always good to have new entrants, to have more competition, because it keeps all of us on our toes. Behind the scene, Ashok Leyland has been working on this for quite a long time. But you might say that we don't see your vehicles out in large numbers.
Right.
One, it depends on the customer. Secondly, it also depends on the viability. If you look at our sales of buses as well, we have not gone as fast as some of our competitors, purely because the economics don't work well. When you sell a bus where you have to be providing all the services for 12 years, the experience on the batteries are yet to show how they operate, the number of years they will work for. So we've been slightly slower, but I can assure you of one thing. We have the full products range available. Our distribution network is there. So when we want to accelerate, I see us being number one in buses as we are in diesel, and we will do the same in electric as well.
Right. But do you feel legacy players, much like yourself, will eventually hold their own when it comes to EVs, given the kind of crowding that we're seeing in multiple segments?
Well, you know, we have a lot of history and we have a lot of brand loyalty, and customers have a preference for the traditional brands as well. Like I said, never underestimate competition, but we feel quite confident that irrespective of the fuel type, our vehicles will continue to perform well, and our whole focus is towards the customer. How do we make their life much simpler?
Right. And that's a great metric to go forward with, no doubt. I remember, Dheeraj, close to 9 to 10 years ago, I did a story on the defense business, especially when it came to the focus that we were seeing on making in India insofar as the defense sector is concerned. Given that it's such a sentimental and an integral part of the kind of business that you do, how much do you expect defense to contribute to your overall business in the next half a decade?
Well, you know, over the last 10 years, we've been investing a lot in terms of defense products, especially in the mobility field. And whilst we had traditionally just a Stallion vehicle, a 4x4, that has been upgraded now to 6x6, 8x8, and we've got the light vehicle. So we've got a whole product portfolio that's available. Unfortunately, due to the geopolitical situation, I think the sales of defense equipment will continue to grow. And within that, I wouldn't like to put a percentage sales, but the last 18 months, we have been seeing increase in the sales of our defense products.
All right. And do you expect the trend to continue over the next 5 years?
I think so,
too?
yes.
All right, okay. Well, it's been 75 years, and that is no doubt a massive achievement, given that it's, well, 3/4 of a century, and you know, cements your place as a legacy player and one with a rich and varied heritage, so to speak. And I think at your 75th year celebrations, you outlined a plan to be one among the world's top 10 commercial vehicle manufacturers.
That's right.
What's the plan to getting there, Dheeraj? Have you outlined that blueprint, and have you and your team sit down to saying, all right, let's look at what we can actively do to hit that target?
Well, you know, if you go around our offices, you will see the vision statement very clearly there. And this has been worked on by the whole management team. It's been broken down into what would be the sales in the domestic market, in international operations, LCV, MHCV. So we have a clear blueprint of what we need to do, how we want to do it. But we also realize that as a result of doing this, as a 75-year-old company, we need to reinvent ourselves as well.
All right.
So we created a new purpose, we developed new cultural values, and within this, you know, what's important for us is innovation, agility, partnership, customer centricity, trust. And so I think, you know, when you look at the values with which we're going forward and the internal work that we need to do, I'm quite confident that the target that we've kept of being in the global top 10 is very much within our reach. It's not going to happen tomorrow morning. There's an aspiration, and looking at the growth that we're seeing in India and the markets that we're able to conquer much better, GCC, We've got a very large network in the African markets today. We're in 15 African countries. We're moving into the Indonesian market. So I think reaching that number as per the blueprint we've created is very much possible.
All right. It's no doubt possible, and I know that you understand that it's of course a long drawn process too. So if I were to get you to look into your crystal ball and tell me what the next 25 years would look like, with 75 years done and dusted, and if it isn't asking for too much, what do you envision when Ashok Leyland hits 100 years in 25 years from now?
I think more than numbers, what's really important is what do we offer to the customer. And from that perspective, what I mentioned to you, we created a purpose, which is transforming lives and businesses through leadership in mobility. And what does that really mean for us? Truckers have a very difficult life. We want to ensure that any truck driver or a customer, when they're on the road, they know that when they're with an Ashok Leyland product, it's reliable, it's durable, and it's safe. And they can be sure of coming back home in a very safe manner. The same thing when we sell our buses, school children, school buses, we want to make sure the safety with which a parent sends their children in our bus is guaranteed. And most importantly, the armed forces. When our products are there on the borders, our soldiers are dependent on the performance of our vehicle. We want to give them that assurance that we are there for them. And I think for me, that gives the best satisfaction, more than the numbers. So looking 25 years ahead, I would like to see that the customers say that, yes, this is a brand that we trust and that we want to continue partnering with.
All right. And where does Dheeraj Hinduja go from here? You've been ably steering this ship for several years now, so to speak. What do you want on the personal front in terms of the company itself? What do you want to achieve and what do you want to do as you move forward with Ashok Leyland?
Well, you know, if you see the last few quarters, we've got a long-term goal, but at the same time, we've got very clear-cut goals. Within that, there is a large expectation from customers as well, from our stakeholders. And so whilst improving our market share, we also want to ensure that our shareholders get good returns. And I think keeping this matrix of market share along with the returns that we can give, being the best in terms of financial performance is a very clear goal that we have kept for ourselves. And I do feel that the last few quarters demonstrates what we had told the investors last year, we can deliver on it. And I'm very confident that going forward as well, not only we will continue to grow our market share, we will also continue to improve our financial performance. There was a time when the difference between the market leader and ourselves was a difference of 35% in market share. Today that is narrowed down to 14%. So we're improving year after year, and I feel very confident we'll get there.
All right, well there you have it. It's a picture of improvement, even as there's a little bit of something for everybody, shareholders, customers, and the industry at large. On that note, Dheeraj Hinduja, a pleasure speaking to you as always. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.